You know what scares me more than losing money? Not starting. Because here's what no one tells you about wealth. The difference between you retiring with nothing versus retiring with $500,000 isn't talent, it isn't luck, it isn't even how much you earn. It's whether you can tolerate feeling stupid for about 5 to 7 years while nothing seems to happen. I've been thinking about this a lot lately. Probably because I've watched people, smart people, people who make more money than me, completely destroy their financial future without even realizing it. And they do it the same way every time. They wait. They say things like, I'll start when I have more, or $100 a month, that won't do anything, or my personal favorite, the market's too risky right now. And look, I get it. I've said those things too. There's something humiliating about putting money into something and watching it just sit there, grow $3, maybe 12. But here's what I'm starting to understand. And I'm still wrapping my head around this, so bear with me. That feeling of embarrassment, that's actually the test. Most people fail it, and I almost did too. We're going to talk about why $100 a month isn't about the money and why the people who figure this out end up with something way more valuable than a retirement account. But first, I'll tell you later about the moment I almost quit. It was year 3, and I was convinced the whole thing was a scam. But let me walk you through what I've learned since then. Chapter 1: The $1,000 Lie. Here's something that bothered me for years. The financial advice industry keeps telling you that you need an emergency fund, 3 to 6 months of expenses. And yeah, that's true in theory. But according to recent surveys, and this number still shocks me, most Americans can't access even $1,000 in an emergency. Not 100,000. Not 10,000. $1,000? So here's the contradiction that nobody talks about. You're supposed to save 3 months of expenses, but more than half the country can't scrape together a car repair. Which means either everyone is irresponsibly stupid, which I don't believe, or the advice itself is broken for most people's reality. I think it's the second thing. Because when you're living close to the edge, and I've been there, being told to save $15,000 before you start investing feels like being told to fly to the moon. It's technically correct. It's also completely useless. So here's my slightly uncomfortable take. Start with $100 a month, even if you don't have the full emergency fund yet. I know that sounds reckless. A lot of financial planners would yell at me for saying that. But here's my thinking. And again, I'm not entirely sure about this, but I'm leaning into it. The emergency fund advice keeps people stuck in saving mode forever. And saving is not the same as investing. Saving keeps you where you are. Investing moves you somewhere else. Plus, and this is the part that took me years to understand, once you start investing, something shifts in your brain. You stop seeing money as something to spend. You start seeing it as something to deploy. In that shift, that's worth more than the $1,000 you don't have in your emergency fund. Chapter 2: The Boring 5 Years. Okay, let me show you the math, but not the fake math, the real math with the annoying part included. If you invest $100 a month for 10 years at an 8% return, which is actually lower than the stock market's historical average, but let's be conservative, you end up with about $18,000. You contributed $12,000, so you made $6,000 in growth. And your first reaction is probably the same as mine was. That's it? $6,000 over 10 years? Because yeah, that's not life-changing money. That's a used car. But here's where I almost made a huge mistake. And I want to be honest about this because I think most people do the same thing. I looked at that number. $18,000 after 10 years, and I almost quit. I thought, why am I bothering? This is stupid. I could just work overtime for 6 months and make $6,000. And that logic sounds completely reasonable. Except it's wrong. And I didn't understand why it was wrong until I looked at the 40-year number. Same $100 a month. Same 8% return. After 40 years, you have over $350,000. You contributed $48,000 of your own money, which means more than $300,000 came from nothing you did. No extra shifts, no side hustles, no skipping coffee. The money made money, and then that money made more money, and then that money. You see where this is going. But here's the brutal truth that financial content never shows you. Years 1 through 5 feel almost pointless. You're putting in $6,000 and you've made maybe $1,500. It's boring, it's slow, it's embarrassing to talk about. Year 10 feels okay, but not amazing. Year 20 is when you go, oh, I see what's happening. Year 30 is when you feel like a genius, even though you didn't do anything except not quit. Most people quit in year 3. That's the real filter. Chapter 3, Marcus and the Latte. Let me tell you about someone I used to work with. I'll call him Marcus. Marcus and I started our first jobs around the same time, both making terrible money, both living in overpriced apartments. One day at lunch, I remember this so clearly, he saw me looking at my investment account on my phone. I had maybe $800 in there. Embarrassing, honestly. He laughed. Not meanly, just confused. Dude, he said, why are you even bothering? That's nothing. And I didn't have a good answer, because he was right. It was nothing. But here's what happened over the next 12 years. I kept putting in my stupid little $100 a month, sometimes less when money was tight, sometimes more when I got a bonus. Marcus bought a nicer car, then a nicer apartment, then a motorcycle he barely rode, then he started eating lunch out every single day, which, by the way, was $15 a day, which is $300 a month, which is triple my investment. I'm not telling you this to sound superior, because honestly, I was jealous of him for years. His life looked more fun. But last year, Marcus asked me how I was affording a down payment on a house, and I told him. And he got quiet. Because here's what he didn't see during those first 5 boring years. He didn't see the account slowly ticking up. He didn't see year 8 when the growth started outpacing my contributions. He didn't see year 10 when my money made more money in 1 month than I made at my job in a week. He saw the $800 and laughed. He didn't see the $80,000. And here's the part that still messes with my head. Marcus isn't irresponsible. He's smart. He makes good money now. But he never started. And now he's 15 years behind. Not because he couldn't afford $100, because he couldn't afford to feel stupid for 5 years. Chapter 4, The Identity Flip. This is the part I can't fully explain, but I'm going to try. At some point, and I don't know exactly when it happened, I stopped thinking of myself as someone who tries to save money. I started thinking of myself as someone who owns capital. That sounds pretentious, I know. But stay with me. When you're a spender, every purchase feels like freedom. I earned this, I deserve this, I'm treating myself. When you're an owner of capital, and again, I'm not saying this perfectly, every purchase feels like a trade. Not, can I afford this, but what is this purchase costing my future self? That $100 dinner isn't $100 anymore. It's $400 in 20 years. it's $1,600 in 40 years. And once you see that, you can't unsee it. But here's the contradiction that I still wrestle with. That mindset can make you miserable if you take it too far. I've gone through phases where I felt guilty about every single purchase. That's not wealth building, that's just anxiety with extra steps. So I'm still figuring out the balance. I don't have it completely dialed in. But what I do know is this: the people who build wealth don't have more willpower than everyone else. They've just updated their identity. They don't ask, "Can I afford this?" They ask, "Is this worth the future wealth I'm trading away?" And sometimes the answer is yes. A trip with your family? Probably worth it. A third streaming service you never watch? Probably not. But you don't start asking that question until you've invested something, anything, because until you've seen your money grow, the trade doesn't feel real. Here's where you have to be honest with yourself. Are you someone who waits for the perfect conditions? Or are you someone who starts with what they have? Because those are the only two categories. There's no third option where you magically have more discipline next year. I had to ask myself that question, and I didn't like the answer at first. I was a waiter. I was always waiting. Waiting until I made more money. Waiting until the market dipped. Waiting until I understood more. Waiting is just a gentler word for not starting. Chapter 5. The thing nobody tells you about automation. Okay, let me give you something practical, because I don't want to just philosophize at you. The only reason I've stuck with this for over a decade is because I made it automatic. I'm not more disciplined than you, I promise. I have bought so many stupid things. I once spent $200 on a juicer I used exactly 4 times. But my investment contribution comes out of my account on the first of every month automatically. I don't decide, I don't think about it. I don't give my present self the chance to talk my future self out of it. This sounds so simple that it's almost insulting. But most people don't do it. Because setting up the automation requires admitting that you're not going to be disciplined on your own. And that's a hard thing to admit. I'm not disciplined. That's why I need the machine to make the decision for me. And here's what happens when you do this. After about 6 months, you stop missing the money. Your lifestyle adjusts. You just live on less without thinking about it. Then, after a year, you start getting curious. What if I did $150? Then, after 2 years, you get a raise, and instead of spending the extra $200 a month, you automate that too. Then one day, and this is the part that still feels like magic to me, you check your account and you have more money than you've ever had in your life. And you didn't feel a single sacrifice along the way. Because you didn't decide every month. You decided once. Remember earlier I told you I almost quit in year 3? It was exactly this. I was looking at my account. I had maybe $4,000 in there after 3 years. The market had a bad quarter. I was down like $200. And I thought, this is stupid. I'm putting money into a hole. But I didn't quit because I had automated it, and I was too lazy to turn off the automation. That's not a heroic story. That's not discipline. That's just removing my own ability to make a bad decision. And that laziness probably made me $300,000. Chapter 6. The $300,000 question. Here's what I want you to sit with. If you start today, not next month, not when you get paid, not when you feel ready, with $100 a month, you will have over $350,000 in 40 years. If you wait 10 years to start, you'll have about $140,000. Same $100 a month, same returns, but you lost $210,000 because you waited. That's the cost of I'll start later. That's the real price. And look, 40 years sounds like forever, especially if you're in your 20s. 40 years is longer than you've been alive. But here's the thing I've started to realize as I get older. And again, I'm still processing this. Time moves whether you use it or not. You're going to be 65 anyway. The only question is whether 65-year-old you has $350,000 or $0. That's not motivation. That's just math. And the math doesn't care if you're tired. It doesn't care if the market feels scary. It doesn't care if you had a rough month. The math just sits there, waiting for you to start or not start. Everything I just said, you're going to have reasons why it doesn't apply to you. I can't find $100. The market is about to crash. I need to pay off debt first. This only works in America. Inflation will eat it all anyway. I've said every single one of those things, and they're all partially true. But here's what I've learned. There's always a reason not to start. Always. If you wait until all the reasons disappear, you'll wait forever. So the question isn't whether the reasons are valid. Some of them are. The question is whether you're going to let valid reasons stop you from doing something that works. Because the people who built wealth didn't have fewer problems than you. They just started anyway. Imagine you're 65 years old. You're not working anymore. Not because you have to, but because you don't have to. You have $350,000, or $500,000 if you increased your contributions, or maybe more if the market did better than average. And you get to that birthday, and you think back to today, to this moment, to this decision. And you either feel grateful that you started, or you feel a kind of regret that's hard to describe because it's not about a mistake you made, it's about a decision you didn't make. That's the future self I'm trying to protect. Not the 65-year-old who wants a yacht. The 65-year-old who just wants to not be afraid. Because that's what wealth really is. It's not Lamborghinis. It's not early retirement in Costa Rica. It's the ability to have a medical emergency without going bankrupt. It's the ability to help your kids if they need it. It's the ability to quit a job that's destroying your soul without becoming homeless. That's what $100 a month buys you. Freedom from fear. So here's what I want you to do. Not think about doing, not consider doing. Actually do. Open your banking app right now. Set up an automatic transfer of $25 a week, or $100 a month, or $10 a week if that's all you can do. The number doesn't matter as much as the ritual. Then put that money into a low-cost index fund, the S&P 500, a target date fund, anything boring and diversified. And then don't touch it for 40 years. That's it. That's the whole strategy. Everything else is just noise. Here's what I'm genuinely curious about. What's the reason you're telling yourself not to start? Not the polite reason, the real one. Is it fear? Is it embarrassment? Is it that you don't believe you deserve to have money? Because I think most of us know the math. The math is easy. The hard part is whatever story we're telling ourselves about why we're the exception. I'd actually like to know what your story is. Drop it in the comments. Not for me, for you. Because saying it out loud is the first step to realizing it's probably not true. If this hit something for you, if you recognized yourself in the waiting, in the "I'll start later," in the feeling that you've already missed your chance, subscribe! Because I'm gonna keep making videos about the boring stuff that actually works, not the get-rich-quick fantasies. The real path, the one that requires you to be patient and honest and a little bit uncomfortable. All right, that's what I've got for today. Maybe I'm wrong about some of this. Maybe the market does something ugly next year. Maybe $100 really isn't possible for you right now. And that's fine. Then it's 20 or 5. The direction is the only thing that matters. Take care of yourself and take care of your future self. The one 10, 20, 40 years from now, that's still you. And they thank you if they could. See you next time.